Hey buddies, Mr. Pugly here, coming at you another Wonderlands build. Today I'm going to be showing you my updated Storm Warden build for Chaos level 50. You guys are probably familiar with my Storm Warden build. This is all about doing lots and lots of shock, aka thunder damage, while of course using Spore Warden and Spellshot to optimize my two favorite shock weapons, which is going to be the Thunder Anima and the Skeet Prod. Now you guys saw at the beginning there's a lot of clips of me killing bosses with the Skeet Prod, but I did sneak in a couple of them on killing one of the bosses. I believe it was Lechance with the Thunder Anima, so you can still boss with the Thunder Anima. It's just that the Skeet Prod is just generally a better bossing tool, especially since it runs out of ammo so quickly, so you don't really want to waste it on mobs. But as you guys saw in the beginning of the clip, this build is able to decimate all the bosses really easily, just like how it has been able to in the past with Chaos level 20 and level 35. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of the build, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch on the top right. You have no idea how much helps me out. And let's get into the video.
Legendary? Whoa! No way, dude!
So first things first, as in tradition, let's go over the skill tree. Now, the skill tree is identical to what it's been in the past, so I'm going to kind of skim through this. We got 3 out of 3 on Magic Bullets. Magic Bullets was nerfed, but it still is able to deal lots and lots of damage for any gun damage build. So of course you want to have 3 out of 3 on that on any gun damage build. We're getting 5 out of 5 on the reload speed in the spell shot tree. Now Thunder Anima has a super slow reload speed. Because of this, you want to optimize it as much as possible. I'm going to show you the reload speed of it right now. It takes around maybe like 3 seconds of full reload, so we want to optimize our reload speed, and that's even with this buff. So we have some other buffs in the build that allow us to reload even faster to optimize our Thunder Anima play. Next we have 5 out of 5 on just warming up to increase our fire rate as much as possible. We have 1 point into Fauna Mana to increase our spell and axe skill cooldown rate. I would have more points in here if I had more points to work with, but we need to put other points into other skill tree points, such as Glass Cannon, which increases our spell damage, which is going to increase our gun damage because of Magic Bullets. Next, high thread count. More spell weave stacks equal more spell damage, more magic bullet damage, blah blah. And imbue weapon allows us to get some bonus elemental damage of shock on our build to deal even more damage overall. So you're going to be boosting your shock damage as much as possible with your guns, and then the bonus shock damage as well from imbue weapons. So it's kind of like a double dip, but I digress. Next we have 5 out of 5 for Eagle Eye for more gun damage, 5 out of 5 on Bullseye to increase our gun critical rate, 5 out of 5 on Affinity to increase our damage for Play the Angles, using Run Runner to increase our fire rate even faster, while of course having some nice quality of life on the build by increasing our movement speed. We have the Revive Pet ability. I didn't get 3 out of 3 on Quiver of Holding because we are mainly using the Thunder Anima, so we don't really get any benefits from the magazine size. 3 out of 3 Wrath of Nature, of course, in this build, because Wrath of Nature is really bread and butter for Spore Warden. Next we have Headhunter to increase our damage when hitting critical hit areas, as well as Play the Angles, because Play the Angles has really good opportunities for cheese damage. And this is a Barrage build, so we're going to be, of course, using the enchantment after activating Barrage. Gun damage has a chance to cause an explosion, dealing 30% of the damage dealt as poison damage. This is a very good enchantment. It's still really good, despite the nerf of it not doing it off of Play the Angles anymore, or even ability damage in general, but I digress. It's still a really good enchantment to have on your build, so make sure to get this as soon as possible on all the weapons that you'd like to use. Now, I have it both on my Skeet Prod and the Thunder Anima, but other weapons that you can use for this build are of course going to be the Automagic.exe or a Sword Explosion. Of course, just generally good weapons all around for any build. Just those 2 weapons are good for really any build, but I could never find an Ascended or even Primordial Automagic that's shock, or even a Sword Explosion that was 3 times as well as shock. So unfortunately we're going to be optimizing these 2 weapons, but that's fine because our rings are tailored for them more than shotguns and pistols. Next we have a peg leg. The main reason why we're using a peg leg instead of a gun pickaxe is because it's going to increase our reload speed by 40%, which is very beneficial for the Thunder Anima. You want to optimize your reload speed as much as possible because you have such a long reload animation, so you want to be able to get back to shooting as soon as possible, and that's what the peg leg does for us, as well as having the enchantment action skill start, increase damage dealt by 20%. This is going to increase the damage of our Spore Fuse, which is this enchantment, as well as just regular regular gun damage, so it can be considered a double dip on that enchantment, which is very awesome. Next we have 2 mood rings. I couldn't find any better mood rings besides volatile for this build, so we're still running volatile. 2 mood rings that are going to be identical: rifle critical hit damage and assault rifle critical hit damage, of course, obviously to optimize our sniper and our assault rifle. Next we are going to be using a Cursed Wit. Obviously a Cursed Wit pairs super well with a spell shot because of the fact that glass cannon doesn't allow us to recharge our shield, so we're going to get this bonus 100% of the time if you make sure your ward is depleted before going into combat, which is excellent. But we have on spell cast, increase lightning damage by 30%. Of course, optimizing the lightning damage is going to be important for this build, so having that is just going to increase your damage by a significant amount despite it only being for 5 seconds. Next we have a Primordial Cape of Tides, which has Spore Warden power and Brrzerker power. Now the Wrath of Nature roll on any armor piece is only going to be found on primary Spore Warden and secondary Brrzerker power, so that's why we're running this in particular. 3 extra points in the Wrath of Nature is just too good to pass up, so you want to always try to look for a armor piece that has this on most Spore Warden builds. But I digress. We are using a Cape of Tides, which is going to increase our lightning damage by 15%, which is really good for this build. We're going to see this effect proc really often, which means we're going to get a awesome 50% multiplicative damage boost for lightning damage, which is awesome. This has gun damage, area damage, and all damage dealt as the secondary stats. Next we have a Primordial Sacrificial Skeep. This is lightning damage and spell shot power. Spell shot power is lacking on our armor since it doesn't have any, and we want to have as much spell shot power as possible to allow us to boost our total damage with magic bullets as much as possible. It has a double roll all damage dealt, which means it's going to increase the damage of, you know, all of our things, including our Spore Fuse enchantment, as well as having a Shock Buffmeister. Now the Buffmeister you want to look out for is a Kachow with Pew. The reason why we're looking for Kachow and Pew is due to the fact that Kachow is going to increase your ability damage, which means you're going to get some more cheese damage from Play the Angles, as well as Pew just increasing your fire rate as well as your reload rate, so you're going to reload faster with Thunder Anima as well as your Skeet Prod, making it basically a machine gun, which is awesome, as well as increasing the fire rate, which is excellent. Now you could in theory use Zap to increase your spell damage to thus increase more gun damage with magic bullets, but I found that these 2 combination of perks on a Buffmeister is ideal when running this setup, and plus I really do enjoy having the cheese damage from Kachow. Also, if you guys aren't familiar, ability damage increases the damage of Spore Fuse like this enchantment. So 30% of all damage dealt as poison damage, this is going to be considered ability damage if you guys aren't familiar. So the skill tree point affinity is also going to increase the damage of this enchantment as well as Kachow. So that's why I think Kachow is better on this build, just because of that enchantment and Play the Angles cheese. But since it's also ability damage, this enchantment is also going to proc Wrath of Nature if you're not aware, so you don't even need to hit foes with your Barrage. You could activate Barrage and then hit the next foe with a Spore Fuse enchantment explosion, and then it's going to proc Wrath of Nature on them, which is excellent. The enchantment on our Buffmeister is going to be on active skill start, increase gun damage by 40% for 10 seconds. Next, let's quick run through our myth ranks as well as our hero stats. Our hero stats is going to be maxed out strength, maxed out in 2 minutes. You want to be able to activate Barrage as much as possible so you can actually activate your enchantments, and especially the Spore Fuse enchantment for the poison explosions, as well as midway and intelligence. Now normally I put points into wisdom, but I feel like the optimization of our burst window by activating our action skill as well as our spell is way more important than status effect damage, despite, you know, in theory applying a huge dot with wisdom from Play the Angles and stuff like that. I just feel like these 2 particularly hero stats makes the build flow a lot better in my opinion, because if you're not activating Barrage or your spell as much as possible, your damage is going to falter just a tiny bit. So it's important to have those burst windows minimized as much as possible so you can activate them as quickly as possible, if that makes sense. Next, here's my myth ranks. We have 398. We have my Druid right here, my Archmage right here, my Blade Master right here, and my Deadeye right here. Now, before I actually show you some gameplay of me mobbing, I'm going to, of course, show you what I normally like to do when trying to get my Spellweave stacks. Of course, you're going to get Spellweave stacks every time you reload and of course cast a spell. So I like to use a Masterwork Crossbow so you can get your Spellweave stacks really quickly, but you could even just use your Skeet Prod and just reload really quickly as well if you're not worried about the 1 ammo being taken away from your magazine size. Now normally I like to use another weapon to proc the Spellweave stacks. only due to the fact that skeet prod ammo or sniper ammo in general is very limited, so you want to save that as much as possible unless you're looking to do just a real quick boss kill, like apply all your spell weave stacks and then just go into the fray. Now normally for mobbing, I like to just primarily use my Thunder Anima due to the fact that it's able to kind of just mob like a beast. Like I killed I think 3 enemies without even aiming primarily at the other 2 enemies, just due to the fact that this gun is just able to ricochet bullets so good. So you can just kind of not really worry about where your ammo or I guess your bullets are really going and kind of just kill all the targets, so you can kind of like kill the targets without looking, I guess. But let me show you the game plan primarily with the Thunder Anima. So of course you want to shoot as much as possible, but once you notice yourself reloading, you want to melee halfway through your animation, so you cancel it. Canceling your animation of course is going to make the 3-second reload animation shorter by nature, but of course hitting with the actual peg leg is going to make your next reload even faster. So let me see if I can't show you that in practice. So now that we have a room of enemies, I'm just going to try my best at shooting the Thunder Anima until it needs to reload, and then I'm going to hopefully have a target to actually melee, which it looks like I killed that guy a little bit too quickly. So as soon as I start reloading, I'm going to wait for halfway through the animation and then melee. Since our peg leg also has echo, that means you're going to see that your melee hits is going to yield lots and lots of damage. And you might be noticing that I'm reloading a lot faster than I was before. That is because the peg leg increases the reload speed by 40%, which means we're going to be able to, of course, reload a lot faster than before. And if you were to combine that with the Buffmeister, you're going to see the reload rate increase to a crazy 120%, which means you're going to get like a 1.5 second cooldown, or I guess 1.5 second reload speed with your Thunder Anima, which is fantastic. So now that I explained the main nuance on the Thunder Anima, let me go into an elite chamber and show you what I normally like to do deals most amount of damage. Of course, due to the fact that we have a lot of action skill start as well as a Barrage specific Spore Fuse enchantment on our gun, we want to be activating Barrage about every 10 seconds. Due to this, you're going to see your damage is going to get even higher. And after activating your Barrage, you of course want to probably activate your Buffmeister so you can increase your damage even further. One thing you always want to keep a track of is when your Barrage enchantment is going to go on cooldown. So I primarily just like to remind myself after killing a few enemies, just the next enemy I see, I'm going to try my best to just remember to do the actual Barrage skill, because then otherwise we're not going to get the actual enchantment to proc. And as you can see right here, we can just primarily kill all the targets really easily. In fact, I could probably just shoot the floor and all the targets around me are going to die just like that. The whole concept and reasoning on why I even wanted to make the Storm Warden build was because of the Thunder Anima, and that was before it was actually able to get enchantments. And now that it has enchantments, it's able to wreck faces even faster than it was before. And I just love this gun so much, so it's really fun to have a build that optimizes it in particular to deal lots and lots of damage. And then finally, let me just take out my Skeet Prod. Now normally I like to use the Thunder Anima during this encounter, but I'm going to primarily use the actual Skeet Prod just so you can see the amount of damage it does, which is, you know, really crazy. Now primarily due to the fact that it kills targets so quickly, I like to use it primarily for bosses, but you can also use it for tough mobs as well to kill them really quickly. Now you might be noticing that I only have around 100 ammo left, and that is the main reason why I don't like to use it for mobbing. So whenever there is a boss, I like to take it out and kind of just save it for only bosses, because it kills bosses really quickly, just like that. And now unfortunately we only have a total of 78 sniper ammo left, which just is another reason why you primarily want to focus on never using the Skeet Prod until you find a boss, because if you hit a raid boss, you're not going to want to only have around 60 bullets to your name with your sniper. Even though you could probably eliminate them with the 60 ammo, you want to have as much of a chance as killing them as possible. So make sure to save your ammo for actual bosses with Skeet Prod, despite what I just showed right there. There's not a lot of changes to its previous editions. Primarily you want to use a Skeet Amulet due to the fact that you're playing a spell shot, so Glass Cannon is always going to make you weaker for survivability than General, but due to the fact that health gating allows you to just be invulnerable every time you're above 50% HP, Skeet Amulet just really gives you that 10 seconds of invulnerability that you really desperately need on this build. So make sure to use a Skeet Amulet in particular with any spell shot builds like this that focuses on getting your ward depleted and keeping it depleted, because otherwise you're going to die a lot and that's never fun. And there isn't a lot of changes with this build you might be thinking that I might be interested in using a protagonizer, but the protagonizer doesn't allow us to get that survivability that I just talked about, so Skeep Amulet is still going to be the best amulet to use on this particular build. But if you want to get quicker boss kills, you could in theory use the protagonizer to get even more damage out there, like cheese damage with the Spore Fuse, since it increases with ability damage, which the protagonizer amulet does give you, as well as more cheese damage from play the angles. But as I said before, the survivability is more important to me. You can't really kill a raid boss if you're dying every 2 seconds, so that's why the Skeep Amulet is still the best in slot amulet on this particular build. I really do hope you guys enjoyed this build. It is one of my more favorite builds to even do, so it's really a big joy for me to get back into it and do a Chaos Level 50 edition of this build. Of course, as always, there's going to be a save file in the description or on my Discord for this build. It is a ton of fun. I really encourage you guys to try it. And as always, a big shout out to the members who make these videos possible. We got Clairvoyance, Rick and Glacius, 31 Bar 70, Grey Wolf, Wishkeeper, Cameron, Benjamin, Abdurrahman, and Call Doctor. These are the people who support me as little as $5 a month on Patreon or YouTube, and you can also support me as little as $5 a month by clicking the link in the comments description or in the top right to become a member. The more members we have, the closer I get to becoming full-time, which means more videos for you guys. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye.
And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat, facing him out with a moxie melt till he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. War in a cave with a torch on a wall, then a window arrangement of porcelain dolls.